Well, here we go again. Yet another Donald Trump Muslim majority nation immigration ban has been signed by executive order. We had the first attempt, total disaster, ruled illegal, unconstitutional by a federal court. White House officials said in private that they believed it actually damaged Donald Trump's presidency, the total disaster. That was the first attempt at this. And the administration has now rolled out a new travel ban with slightly softer provisions, but it's still, in the broader scheme of things, some of the most extreme immigration policy that we've ever seen. Here's the executive order signed by Trump called the Executive Order Protecting the Nation from Foreign Terrorist Entry into the United States. Here's DHS Secretary John Kelly saying just how great this is going to be for everybody.
Today's executive order, which President Trump signed this morning, will make America more secure and address long overdue concerns about the security of our immigration system. We must undertake a rigorous review and are undertaking a rigorous review of our immigration vetting programs to increase our confidence in the decisions we make relative to visitors and immigrants that travel to the United States.
Yeah, what a ringing endorsement. Super excited guy there. Anyway, Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson were also at this press conference. Nobody took any questions. The problem is, of course, that a leaked document last week made clear from DHS itself that the first immigrant ban wouldn't have been an effective means of stopping terror. The order that Donald Trump signed yesterday bars entry to the U.S. by people from 6 predominantly Muslim countries, the same list from attempt number 1, except Iraq has been removed. So we're talking about Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. The White House figured out that if you ban people from Iraq, it might hurt our image over there as we fight ISIS. And removing Iraq from the list was actually Defense Secretary Mattis's idea. But Donald Trump has threatened to add other countries to the list, including Iraq, if the White House doesn't feel that they're cooperating with the United States enough. A major point, aside from whether you agree with this type of policy, is that the list doesn't include any country from which anyone has come and committed terrorism on U.S. soil, although undoubtedly Iran, which is on the list, major exporter of terrorism around the world, including to my birth country of Argentina. The list still excludes countries with terrorists where Trump has business ties, like Saudi Arabia and Egypt. That's separate from whether this is a policy whose type makes sense generally, and I believe that it really isn't. The major provisions of this policy are that almost no new immigrants from the updated list of countries will be allowed to enter the U.S. for at least the next 90 days. The order also got rid of the permanent ban on Syrian refugees, but almost no refugees from any country will be let into the U.S. for the next 4 months. Here is a couple different things from the travel ban. Number 1, the Secretary of State shall suspend travel of refugees into the United States and suspend decisions on applications for refugee status for 120 days after the effective date of this order, subject to waivers. Donald Trump can renew those bans when they expire. The order also caps refugees at 50,000 per year. That's less than half of what was allowed under President Barack Obama. There's a section of the order that actually seems almost like it's resentful and defensive about the court having, numerous courts having blocked the first order, where the order says, Executive Order 13769, the previous one, did not provide a basis for discriminating for or against members of any particular religion. That order was not motivated by animus toward any religion. The reality is that during the campaign, Trump said plainly he wants to ban Muslims from the U.S. They also wrote in language that keeps with their accusation that terrorism and immigrant crime don't get enough publicity in media. This reads more like a political rally speech than it does an executive order on immigration. Another quote from it that I'm referring to be more transparent with the American people, DHS will collect and make publicly available the following information. The number of foreign nationals in the U.S. who have been charged with terrorism-related offenses and the immigration status of foreign nationals charged with major offenses. The order doesn't explain how our already rigorous vetting system is going to be ramped up. This leaves room for officials to just sort of come up with something later, saying, quote, the Secretary of Homeland Security shall conduct a worldwide review to identify whether and if so what additional information will be needed from each foreign country to adjudicate an application by a national of that country for a visa, admission, or other benefit, in order to determine that the individual is not a security or public safety threat. So, differences from the first ban to this ban. This order will make more exemptions for people from banned countries than the first order did. This order also exempts current permanent residents and visa holders from who are trying to re-enter the country. This should prevent those situations where you had permanent residents and visa holders originally from the listed countries who were out at the time the first order was signed, getting stuck at airports trying to come back in. It also gets rid of that clause about preferential treatment for Christians. So the administration has made this ban somewhat lighter, more narrow, presumably hoping to avoid the backlash from the first order. A recap of what this order does. New immigrants are barred. Green card holders from the countries listed are exempted from the ban. Diplomats from the listed countries are allowed. All refugees from the countries are barred. Dual nationals are allowed into the U.S., and Iraqi nationals are allowed in, which Iraq, not on this list, was on the first list. Going to be phased in over 2 weeks instead of in 1 day. My reaction to this, Pat, is exactly what I feared after the last immigration ban was destroyed by the legal system, which is they passed the 120% crazy version. That was taken down. It was by numerous courts determined to be illegal, unconstitutional. They now come back with something that is 90, 85% of the original ban, but maybe it's 100% of what they genuinely wanted to begin with. And no doubt there will be backlash, but there will be less backlash.
And the Trump administration probably thought about trying to appeal one of the court's decisions to the Supreme Court to see if they could upheld this and make it seem constitutional in some way.
Yeah.
But it clearly wasn't. I mean, it prioritized Christians. And without these exemptions, it was clearly unconstitutional. I think with the provisions that they've updated, it will be upheld because I think this is within the power of the president.
I've been reading legal opinions from legal experts on the left, right, and center. And indeed, it appears as though most of the legal issues presented by the first one are addressed here, but that it's really too early to tell, right? We don't yet know what legal issues may come up. A lot of this is sort of like NSA surveillance or TSA passenger screening techniques. If we believed that these provisions would be super effective at fighting terror or crime, we would be having a different conversation, which is, do the ends justify the means? What's the legality, et cetera? Many people would understandably still say no. But much like NSA bulk surveillance, much like TSA passenger screening techniques, we know that they aren't that effective. So what are we even arguing about? It is merely optics and political theater.
Especially because this is a temporary ban and has been marketed as such since Trump proposed this idea in December of 2015 of rolling out some sort of Muslim ban. I mean, if it was effective, you'd think you'd have to make it so it lasts a longer period of time, and he could keep extending it.
Yes, indeed.
But clearly, I mean, it's just not going to work.
We have numerous reports, including from agencies that will be involved in the enforcement of this ban, saying this is not an effective means of fighting terror. Well, I guess in the Trump era, we don't really trust our institutions anymore. We know the FBI and CIA, hey, they're part of the fake news problem. Maybe the report from DHS, which is going to be part of enforcing this, also is fake news. I'm obviously joking around. We'll see ultimately what legal challenges surface.